Houseman.
Yeah, that's me.
Houseman.
Yo, can I get them G's?
Houseman.
You gotta give me the keys.
Houseman. Will I get as much as I can?
Of course you will. Who am I?
Houseman.
Oh, that's frumpy.
Welcome to Houseman TV. Today, my guest is Mr. Ryan Raven of Rehab Loan Group. How you doing, Ryan?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me today.
All right, cool, man. Ryan, you come with a lot of experience in the world of loans. You've worked in a wide variety of different types of loans that you've issued to people in the past and at the present. And the reason why I wanted to talk to you today, Ryan, is because you come from a very let's say a background that most people would think that it would make you the kind of guy who has a lot of information on real estate investing and the privileged life that type of information has. But you actually grew up kind of like a regular middle class kid, like the rest of us, right?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah.
And so Ryan, you're always one of those people in the club. Just so everybody knows, Ryan is from the Inland Empire Real Estate Investment Club, like myself. And you're always one of those people in the club that I like to go to when I'm kind of trying to figure out how to work a deal. And, I got to get the financing for the deal. And so, obviously the first person I call is Ryan Raven, you know what I mean? So, so Ryan, tell me about like
that.
hey man, look, you take care of me. I try to take care of you as best I can.
That's the way that's the way the world works, right? It makes it go
Right.
around, right? It's all about helping each other out.
Exactly. Well, especially real estate investors, right? Because
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
we're the dirty, evil Scrooge McDuck that nobody likes, right?
Right.
So, no, but I think if more people knew that real estate investors look like regular guys like me and you, and just come from a regular, average background, that would destroy some of that myth that people have that we're all just out greedy, money hungry guys to get every last penny. So,
Right.
what is it that you help investors with when they come into the club? Say I'm a new guy, I'm just walking into the club, and let's just say I'm walking in the Mission Inn, right? And so what is it that you can help me with, like when I'm trying to get started in real estate?
Well, I mean, my background is in lending, so finance is something that I'm fairly familiar with. I'm getting up there in age. I'm 49 now, and I started when everybody called me a kid because I was 18. So the majority of that stretch has been in a loan officer capacity of one form or another. So, I mean, when it comes to real estate finance, that's really my forte. And then also, just looking at deals. I mean, I've looked at, thousands of appraisals. I've looked at thousands of loan files when you're lending somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars. So from a risk standpoint, and a deal analyzation, I think that's where I'm most helpful, to most of the new club members.
So when you talk about risk and how ultimately that risk is kind of shouldered by a bank, like what do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's just like you and me. If I lend you money, I mean, we get together and you go, hey, Ryan, I need to borrow $100. My kids need something, and and I'm saying, okay, well, some of the risk mitigation is, well, how well do I know you? Do I expect you to pay me back, kind of thing? And when it comes to lending on a house, it's the same kind of thing. The bank is looking at a customer and saying, okay, if I lend you this money, what is the likelihood that you are trustworthy enough that I can expect to get my money back. And there's a lot of risk factors. So, there's risk factors from an individual as far as, like, for example, what's your background, what's your work, what's your income been like, and what is it expected to be steady? Should it go up? Are you new in your job? Are you seasoned? You got a stable career? Are you young and you're mobile? You got a good education, and you've got the ability to move up, in your income. Then there's your credit and your past history of repaying debt, and analyzing those things and seeing, are you somebody who's likely to not repay me, or are you somebody who's likely to pay me? From that standpoint, then there's the risk factors of the house. The house, is it a marketable property? Is it in a metropolitan area where it's easy to sell a house? There's a demand for housing. Is the house in habitable shape? Is it good, in really good top condition, or is it run down, broken windows, holes in the roof? And the risk is that I put my money there and you can't fix it, and I don't get repaid. I have to take the house back, and then I gotta sell a house that's damaged or needs a lot of repairs, and I gotta put more money out of my pocket to do that, to get it to sellable condition. And then there's the risk factors of things that you really don't think about, like what's going on with the economy. Large institutions will take a look at what's going on in the economy, and they'll tighten their lending criteria or loosen it based on what's going on in the economy and what are the risk factors of the economy. There's a lot of things that go into, just giving somebody a loan. It's not just, hey, I need some money for a house, and look, I got a lot of equity, give me some money. Especially since the last fiasco, the housing crash. Banks have gotten more legislation requiring them to make sure that you can pay back. They're much more stringent on the ability to pay these days versus prior to 2008, where there weren't the regulations in place to require such stringent standards of the ability to repay. So you had things like, these stated income loans where, the clerk at the 7-Eleven punching up your big gulp order, could state they make $10,000 a month to be able to qualify to buy a house. That just didn't make sense back then. And most of the industry has learned a lesson from that.
Okay, no, I see what you're saying. So when it boils down to it, it's really not just like one or two things that a person can look at and say, hey, as long as this is okay and that's okay, then yeah, then we can go ahead and give this guy a loan. It goes into a lot of things, but I think what you're really saying is at the bottom line that to be able to get a loan, it's going to require that you kind of paint the profile, the picture of somebody who earns enough money to buy what it is you're trying to buy, and then also at the same time that you have a history of paying people the money that you have borrowed, which is reflected in your credit report. Is this kind of the general sense?
Generally, yeah. And it, when you're buying a house for an investment purpose, there's a lot of different risk factors that are considered, and there's certain lending criteria that you can do when you're buying an investment property because it's a business loan. So they look at it a little differently than if you're going to go out and you're buying a house that you want to live in. When you're buying a house to live in, they're going to look at your income much more, harshly. They're going to require, documenting your income sources and is it likely to continue and things like that. Whereas on for example, an investment property that you're buying, you want to the risk factors there are, is it reasonable to expect that you can accomplish what you're saying you're doing, whether it's, fixing it up and selling it, or, fixing it up and getting a tenant and maintaining that rental income, so, when you're at the very beginning stages and you're trying to look at, what should I qualify for? Am I somebody that can qualify? You want to try and paint yourself in as good of a light as possible with those experiences. So you want to reassure the lender that, hey, look, if I'm a brand new landlord, I've got, I don't have any experience, at landlording, but I do have, an uncle that did it, and he's very active with me and can, show me the ropes. Or I've got, a group of friends who are also real estate investors that are showing me the ropes to be able to get this done and help me answer questions and make this transaction a successful one for the lender. Because, I mean, in my eyes, the way I kind of see it is if you respect the money, the money will respect you. In other words, if you're borrowing money from, whether it's a large institution or, a private individual, if you respect that, they earn that money, that's real money to somebody, that, you've got to protect that interest as well and make sure that you do what you can to mitigate the risks that you can control to make sure that that loan eventually gets repaid. And if you do that, it makes it much easier down the road when you're ready to go buy your 10th, 11th, or 20th house or 1,000th house or whatever. If you've got that track record already lined up, it really helps support easier qualifications.
Okay. No, that makes total sense. So what you're saying is that when you have the ability to go out there, find a deal, and that is, or let me back up a little bit, because a lot of times we use that kind of jargon when we're talking about real estate, and I say it's a deal, but it's really a house. It's a house to somebody. It's a
Sure.
home to a family eventually. And so when you're a person who is looking to buy a house to live in, you're basically treated differently than if you're just buying a house to rent out or to flip to somebody. And that's primarily because, and let's just call it what it is. I mean, we live in a capitalist country, and the laws that we have here in America are set up for capitalism. And therefore, when you are engaged in the act of capitalism, the laws tend to, you start finding a lot of the laws are leaning your way to help you engage in that capitalistic activity. Is that correct?
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah. So so basically, in the process of getting a loan for an income property, you're saying that the credit of the person doesn't matter so much as their experience with real estate. So if you were the kind of guy that maybe had some bad credit
Well,
when you were
actually,
younger.
Alvin, I mean, credit
Yeah.
does matter. It,
Okay.
it, it does matter on the investment side. It's your
Okay.
income that doesn't matter.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, when you're buying an investment property, your credit history, what you've done in the past counts.
Okay.
And it's always easier if you have good credit. You've shown a history of being able to repay your debts.
Gotcha.
And lenders look at it much more that it's a business transaction. So how likely are you to succeed in this business venture
Okay.
versus, I'm buying this house to live in kind of thing. So they're looking at, okay, what's your past history? And that's more important than what your income is, because you're creating income with this business venture. So as long as you can make it support itself, that's the important thing, because you might not necessarily have any income, but if you've got this particular project that you're able to make successful, it's more likely that because your income's coming from that source, you're going to do what you can to protect that income source, and you'll make sure that payment gets paid.
Gotcha. Okay. And that actually, Ryan, that brings up a good point to make, because what you're saying is, and I apologize because I did have that wrong. We don't want to misconstrue anybody, that it is important to show good credit. It is
Yep.
important to repay your debts, especially the debts that people are going to look at, like the revolving debts, the constant debts that
Yeah.
you have all the time, like the credit card payment, like
Right.
the car payment, the even paying your rent is a debt
Yep.
that will be recorded on your credit card. And if you have the rent to pay it on time, don't do like I've done in the past and just, oh man, so I got the money in the account, I just forgot to pay the rent. Now I got the late fee plus a
Right.
strike on my credit saying that I
Yep.
forgot to pay my rent that month, even though I had the money. And so
Yep.
this all adds up over time. And so what they're looking at is your ability to repay debt. That's going to count for something. And then the experience that you have with property. So say like if you're
Hmm.
a young guy and you can, maybe go get a job. Hey, look, I'm gonna throw it out there. You got a job going to cut grass, you can say that you had a lawn service. Okay.
Right.
So there are things that you can do to get yourself set up to be in the position to qualify for a hard money loan. And that's the difference between what we're talking about as a traditional loan, where you're going to live in the property, and the loan that you use when you're doing an investment property. That's called a hard money loan. And so Ryan, when you're a guy and you are just, out there in the world, you may not have a job, but you're walking to school every day, could be college, could be high school, and you see this vacant house in your neighborhood, right?
Right.
Now, what could that young guy do when he sees that vacant house? Like, he's 18 years old, he sees a vacant house, he starts, looking at these web videos, and he sees a guy named Ryan Raven who gives money to people for vacant houses. What does he need to do with that vacant house so that he can get Ryan Raven's money?
Well, I mean, the first thing he's got to do is make sure that to find out who owns the house and start a conversation. And there's several ways to do that. You can leave a note on the door, or you can create a flyer, or you can knock on the door and see if somebody answers. You can talk to the neighbors, see if any of the neighbors know who knows the owner or how to get a hold of them. And start that conversation with that seller, and start a dialogue and find out, are they interested in selling? And if they're interested in selling, then it's about negotiating that price. Once you've negotiated the price, then I come into play. And actually, let me take that back. You probably, when you find out that the seller's willing to sell, even as you're in this negotiation over price, it would be a good idea to give me a call, or your lender a call, and say, hey, I found this property, can I qualify? Here's my circumstances. And then someone like me will guide you into, okay, well, I like to take an approach of, well, let's see what you qualify for. And if you don't qualify for this one, let me at least get you the information on what you can qualify for today, or what are the steps you need to take to get yourself ready so that you can buy within a certain period of time,
Right.
kind of thing. But once the seller's willing to sell, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to acquire that, property. I mean, you don't always have to use a hard money loan. Sellers sometimes will carry financing for somebody. I've heard of people, that hadn't even had put any money down and had the seller carry, or, do a lease option, or, there's a lot of different ways to start acquiring the property, even without that alone. But, I mean, from a hard money standpoint, hard money loans typically are equity based. So, that 18-year-old hopefully has a nice large bank account if they're going to go out and try and get a hard money loan, because they'll probably need somewhere between 25 and 30% down. typically on a hard money loan. Now,
Okay.
there are lenders out there that will go, a higher leverage and go less money down. But typically, when they go with the lowest amount down, they're reserving those kinds of loans for people that have experience, not the guy
Gotcha.
that's doing his first deal.
Okay. And so for somebody who's new at this game, you guys sometimes will help people out with doing those first time deals. Is that correct?
We will.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of joint ventures where maybe somebody is new and they want somebody to hold their hand through a process, and maybe they have some of the money but they don't have enough of the money. We will talk with our investors, and if the deal makes sense, we will go into that deal and either provide all of the financing that's needed to get it done, or a portion, or combination of that, and we will help that person get that house and get through their first deal. Everywhere from helping them find a contractor to helping them choose what they need to do with the property, to analyzing it to make sure it's got a reasonable expectation of having profitability. Nobody's going to be 100%. Nobody's going to make money on every single deal, and no matter how many HGTV shows you've seen, there's always going to be the possibility that you lose some money at this.
Wait.
And if you
Hold on a second. Hold on a second now. Look, they always make money on HGTV, man. Who are you to tell me that they are not making money on this stuff on HGTV? I think you're a liar, Ryan Raven. Are you lying to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so let me get this straight, man. So you're saying that, okay, I'm an 18-year-old kid. Okay, no, adult. All right, let's just make it plain and simple, because I got
Sure.
my 18-year-old in there about to pay me rent, brother. So
Right.
you're an 18-year-old adult. You're walking down the street. You see a vacant house. You're like, okay, I need to find out who owns this house. I'm going to talk to the neighbor, see if they know who the guy is. There's other ways you can find out who the guy is, because you can always check the county tax records, which are free
Absolutely.
and online.
Yep.
Did you hear me? I said free and online. Am I
They are.
lying? Okay.
No, not at
Now,
all.
so it really doesn't take much to find people these days. I mean, heck, I've got another what's the free search site you use? True People Search or something like that?
Yeah, there's one like that. There's several of those. I mean, there's all kinds of these skip tracing sites that you can go to get all these records and make contact with people that own the house.
So
there's a lot of different ways to do it.
So the number of different ways to do it, I mean, they're free. That's the point, is that you can get into real estate for free just by having a set of eyes. You don't even have to have a good set of legs. You can wheelchair down the street and find this shit. So
You can.
when you find this, you find out who the owner is, get in touch with the owner, see if they're interested in selling it, if they want to make money off of a vacant house. Think about this, you guys. You're asking somebody, hey, I see you have a vacant house. Would you like to make money with that vacant house? And if the answer is yes, then there are options from there. Would you like to sell the house? Would you like to rent the house out? Would you like to maybe rent the house to me and think about selling it to me in the future, right? The lease option.
Yep.
So there's a few different directions you could take it. But the main point of this is that if they should decide they want to sell that house to you, you contact Ryan Raven, and Ryan will go ahead and analyze the house. He'll go ahead and tell you how much money he can get you. And then he'll even tell you, hey, look, I like this deal, and I could actually help you get this deal if you don't fully qualify yourself, right?
Correct.
So really no excuse not to call Ryan Raven, in my opinion.
Right. Hey, worst thing I can do is say no.
Right. It's worse. It's the worst. So
no worse off than you are now.
Right. And I think, and you're the kind of guy, Ryan, that when you say no, because I personally never heard you say no, you will always come up with an alternate solution.
I do try. I do my best.
Hey,
I
look,
look
man.
at it, it's like I hate the word no when it's told to me.
Right.
So, and I'm the kind of guy, if you tell me no, I gotta at least figure out a way to get a yes, and at least understand why it's a no. Kind of
Okay.
that's just my logic. My brain just like I'm that rebellious kind of. You tell me no, and I'm going to say screw you. I'm going to get it done. So I do try to look at alternatives and is it a hard no, or is it kind of a maybe no, or is it that kind of a thing. So, and if maybe you don't have the money to get the deal done, or you've been turned down by 20 different lenders, but maybe they were all just really busy and they just wanted to get to the next deal. But and they didn't want to take the time to spend and work with you to get the deal done. And I like to do that. I don't want to waste my time, but I definitely look for at least different opportunities, and I try and present those. And if you're willing to do the work to get those things done, then I'm willing to do the work to help you get there. And if you accomplish it, fantastic, and I'll be there to help you out and get the loan, or get the property one way or another.
Okay. And so basically, and part of the reason why I'm gathering you say that you like to take time and try to figure out a different way is in part because of the background that you have with your dad and his experience, what he taught you growing up, but also just because of the environment that you're in with all these real estate investors. Um, added in addition to the guys that you work with over at Rehab
Oh
Loan
yeah.
Group. But I mean, you've got that environment, I think, like that bubble, like the NBA, you're in a bubble, Ryan. And so you got that bubble that you exist in, that everybody around you is doing something to where they're trying to figure out how to get a deal done, not just kind of just throwing them out if they don't fit the Big Mac mold, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I didn't like about working at some of the mortgage companies I've worked at in the past is like, there's just a no. There's just not an alternative way to get it done. Whereas, with the hard money space and in this investment world, there's a lot of different opportunities, and there's a lot of ways to get around no. And I like that creativity of being able to kind of push the boundaries, or make things happen when there's roadblocks, and that sense of accomplishment, that once you've gotten past that roadblock, it's like, all right, cool. I'm proud of myself, and I got that done, and and a lot of people have helped me along the way, and I just feel like give it back. If you got help along the way, help somebody else out. And I don't know. I'm kind of that. I just like the fact that I like helping people. I guess is the bottom line.
Right.
And I've got a lot of people around me to help me, and I've developed that over a period of time of immersing myself into this business. So working in the business, I've developed a lot of relationships, friendships, and people that I can call anytime, and they'll pick up the phone, and and if I need some help, they'll figure out a way to help me, or point me in the direction of where I can get those answers. And that's
Mhm.
I have no problems helping somebody. I mean, even if it's for nothing, it's like I don't have to get paid just to help you out, kind of thing.
Right. Now, why
You
why
know,
is that? Why do you help people out for free? Why would you ever do such a thing? You're a greedy real estate investor. Why would you do that?
like I said, people have helped me out along the way, and it's just been my nature. I think I come from the idea of abundance. I'm not that kind of person that's like, oh, I got a deal, it's my only deal, and oh, I've got to get all of them, and oh, I've got to have it all, and it's all me. It's like there's enough deals for everybody out there. There's no reason to be fighting over another one or getting, hurt because, get my feelings hurt because, you told me one thing and then you didn't do something with the deal, or you told me you were going to give me a deal and, you gave me a shitty one, kind of, I didn't mean to cuss, but,
It's all
there's
good.
a lot of deals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of deals out there to be had, and if you want to do a deal, there's a way to get it done, and that's the way my philosophy is. So why not help people, and eventually, you'd be surprised at how easily it is to get that returned back to you if you're helping a lot of people.
Right.
It's really easy to ask for help if you're helping people.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. That's one of the things that I kind of found to be a little funny when I offer to help people, especially when it's strangers, people that don't even know you, and you tell them, "Hey, man, I just want to help you out," and they're looking at you like, "Huh? Nobody says that. Like, why would anybody help me out for free?" And so for me, it's like, it was actually Jim Keller that told me several times, like, I would be on the phone with him for hours, man, and he'd be like, "Look, if you ever want to pay me back for this, then share this information with somebody else." Because I'm like, man, how could I ever pay you back? I'm dead broke, man. I can't. What can I give to a millionaire? You know what I mean? So, and that was his response. And I think it's something to be said about that response that you just gave me about the fact that it's all about helping people. It's about relationships, because I think with the biggest thing that's misconstrued about wealthy people and real estate investors in particular is that, we're all like Scrooge McDuck. And if you ever walked into a room full of real estate investors, you would be amazed at how much they're just like regular people. And I mean, from the old guys to the young guys, the women, everybody. Like, I can't tell you how many female contractors I've met just being involved in this group. And that's not just from people that are in the group, but just, some of the people I partner with on deals. Um, the fact that we've got guys like Mick Blackwell and Andy Teasley, and then you got Coach, and you got Peter Fortunato, access to people like that.
Right.
I mean, those are invaluable relationships. These guys are
Phenomenal
multi-millionaires.
relationships.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A multi-millionaire will just pick up the phone on the first ring.
Right.
Like,
Right.
growing up, you would have never thought that, right?
Right.
And
Sure.
I'm sure the average person would never think that something like that is real, but it's not a joke. Yeah, these people, it's all about the relationships. So
And people know when you're being sincere with your offer, and when you are sincere in your offer of help assistance, it's like you'd be surprised at how many times years later down the road that you've forgotten about that, and all of a sudden that person comes back into your life, and they're presenting you with an opportunity now.
yeah.
It's happened to me a lot. Like, I'll do a loan for somebody 5 years ago, and they call me back to do the loan, or to do their refinance, because they liked the job that I did. They felt I was looking out for their best interest, or I told them not to take a particular loan and to take another one that was better for their situation. So you do the right thing enough, people know it, and that you build that trust, and that's what builds those relationships, and gets for somebody new, build the relationships, and the deals do come even through osmosis if you're actively in it, and you're actively participating, and you're connecting with people, and you maintain those relationships. You'd be surprised at how many deals you get, not just from door knocking or phone calls or whatever, just from the people that you associate with sometimes.
Yeah. And I think and I'm glad you said that, because that is what this all boils down to, is like, and before getting involved in this group and in the club and whatnot, I didn't understand what real networking was about. You know, you would go to these business mixers, and I'm sure you've been to them in the past. It's like I
Everybody's
see you
standing
laughing.
in little groups and drinking and
Yeah,
having a good time, and you're there and you go, I don't know anybody here, and like, oh god,
and
okay,
like
well, I'll go
everybody,
grab my drink and sit over by the bar, and I'll just kind of hang out over here, and maybe somebody
yeah,
will talk to me.
exactly.
You
And
know,
then
kind of.
and then it's like then you
It's all
discover
stuffy in
like
here,
everybody's all trying to sell each other their own little business service and all that
right?
stuff, and
Yep.
it's like, yeah,
Yep.
I don't need a that, you know.
Right.
You know, yeah, so it's just, yeah. And so then you get into the real estate club and you realize it's like, okay, yeah, there's this language that everybody speaks in the room, and it's like its own particular language. It's called the language of deal making, right? And you know, you got all these real estate terms and stuff like that. And you know, at first I didn't know what everybody was talking about, but it's just through virtue of talking to people like you when I have a deal. And you
Right.
know, and you'll say a word and I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And then you explain it to me because you know those words. And so
Right.
it's like that's how you develop the language. It's just like anything else. And if you have somebody to speak that language to, your language development goes that much quicker. And so
Absolutely.
you've always been one of those people that's helped me, especially early on, with developing my language. And that's from going over deals and thinking about things a little outside the box and that what I would have normally thought of, even just having learned about hard money loans. And so anybody that ends up calling you, if they find a deal and then they call you, and like you said, you'll go over the deal with them. You'll see what they qualify for. If they don't, you try to figure out a way to make them qualify for it. And if that still doesn't work, you still figure out another way. I had a dog back there, man, doing some
Yeah.
crazy stuff,
Yeah.
right? So he
Got
he
two
must want
little
to get in on the
chugs.
interview, right? Does the dog need a
And you
loan
can't see
too?
it, but one's chewing on one hand, and the other one's up here on the other side trying to get up in my lap, and
Is
I'm
that
like,
right? Oh, okay. They don't want a loan. They want love.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So, so,
I'm sorry
so
about that.
no, that's all good. It's all good, man. They want,
Real life here. Real life.
hey, they want dad's attention, man. It's all good.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Better than my kids, because my kids,
Right.
they're like, oh, you left. Like, like, Dad's back. Oh, you were gone? Like, how? 5 days. Oh, 5 days. You were gone
Right.
5 days?
Oh,
Like,
right.
hey, the lights were on and we kept eating. That's all we know, you know. So, but anyway, so yeah, so now let's talk about the development of Ryan's language then, because I think it kind of goes without saying that you had the type of childhood that one would think that you knew the game, you knew the investment game early on, and that by the time I met you, because you and I are the same age, and so you know, we you know, went through the whole Tupac and Biggie Smalls era and all that, and I don't know, I know what I was
Oh, yeah.
learning back then, but I know what you were learning was probably heads over heels better than what I was learning. I was in film school back then, so I was the
Right.
furthest thing from a real estate investor. So
Oh, yeah.
tell me
Well,
about
I wanted to
your.
be a recording engineer is what I wanted to be.
Oh,
My
okay,
mom
okay.
lived in Hollywood, and I would go out to Hollywood every weekend to go visit her. And you know, one of my favorite gigs back in that era of my life was I got to work as a gopher for a first engineer that was recording an album for some off-brand band that never really did anything, but he they were also connected to Kiss.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
this guy was just wrapping up one of Kiss's albums. I think it was the Lick It Up album or whatever. It was just finishing that one to do this one. So, I got to go into the recording engineer. I got to meet these, rock stars, and I drive to Starbucks to get him his coffee, or and the lunch breaks that we would take were usually a trip to Magic Mountain. because he was so stressed out that he just wanted to go on a coaster. And we'd go
Wow.
to Magic Mountain, and I'd drive him there, and he had a DUI, so he didn't have a driver's license. So that's why I was a gopher. So he hired me to drive him around everywhere.
Okay.
So
And how
he'd
old are
take
you
me
at
up
this
to
time?
17. I think I'm 17 at this time, 16,
Okay.
17.
Gotcha.
And he's taking me to Magic Mountain just so that we could ride a roller coaster. He could blow off stress. We'd ride 2 roller coasters and go back to the studio. Talk about a dream job, you know?
Yeah,
You get to hang out with, rock stars, literally, and go on roller coasters. I mean, hey,
Wow.
what more can a 17-year-old want, you know?
Not much more, I'm sure, right?
Right? Other than the girls to go along with it.
Right.
But,
The only thing missing at that point. It's almost like
Right?
it's so close to it. It's almost like a horrible tease to you in a
Yeah.
sense, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
But no, but and then my dad was a real estate broker, and he got his broker's license when I was pretty young. I was probably 7, 8 when he got his broker's license. And the first office building that he bought was a rundown 7-Eleven. And when we went to go look at, he took me with him. He'd always take me to work with him, and I was so bored. I hated like going to work with Dad. But this time we went to go look at this this old 7-Eleven that he was going to turn into a real estate office. And we walk in, and there's like, it's all the old like product is like all over the floor. So like the shelves had been knocked over, and there was candy and bags of chips and all the stuff you'd expect at a 7-Eleven, kind of like all over the floor. So I'm like 8, 7, 7 or 8, and I'm walking in, I'm going, oh my God, look at all this stuff. Oh, this is such a great deal.
jackpot.
No wonder you like this building. You want to buy this building.
Who cares about the $500,000?
We got all this free candy.
Right.
That's
funny.
I really had it really bored me, and I was, my dad worked a lot, workaholic, you could probably say, and it was like he wanted me to get into the business, but he wanted me to do my own thing. But it was kind of like like I said, I was a very rebellious kid, and I got that because of some of the circumstances growing up or whatever. But I was not very good in school. I mean, I was good in school. I mean, if I applied myself, I got A's and B's. But if I was bored in a class or I didn't like a teacher, it was D's and F's.
Okay.
And a lot of what I was learning in high school, I just really wasn't interested in. And so I was getting into some trouble and hanging out with some of the wrong people, and doing the rebellious teenage thing. And my dad saw what was going on, and I was given the opportunity. I told him I want to quit high school, and I want to go to college. I want to go to college early. I'm going to go
How old
to
are you
RCC.
at this point?
I'm like just about to turn 18.
Okay.
And I'm a junior in high school. I'm halfway through my junior year, and I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. I don't want to go to school anymore. I just want to go to college. I want to go to trade school, really is what I wanted to do. Go become a recording engineer. And so I was on the verge of dropping out. And, my dad was like, okay, well, you're going to have to finish getting school, your GED at least. So I got my GED, and he's like, I'll help you go to school. I'll pay for school, whatever you want to do. But before that, you're going to learn what I do. And he got me into the business. He told me, okay, it's your choice. What do you want to do? You want to be a real estate agent? You want to be an escrow, construction, or, I just started this mortgage company, or do you want to do mortgages? And I thought, well, out of all of those choices, the money sounded lend because everybody needs money. It was kind of my thing. Was, if you buy a house, you got to get a loan, right? Or at least most people do. So, my thought process was, if you're going to sell something, why not sell money? So,
Hey, Ryan, can I have you pause for just a second?
Yeah.
Let me have you pause for just
You
a
got some
second because I
audio?
noticed I'm having some internet problems. Yeah, so I'm gonna pause the recording and see
Yeah.
if the kids are doing some stuff in here. Hold on. All right. Okay. So with the 7-Eleven. So so you're 8 years old. You're walking through this 7-Eleven, and you're seeing just all the candy and the bags of chips on the floor and everything, and you're not thinking about so much about your dad's brokerage and what he's gonna do and all this money he's gonna make. Your only
Right.
thought is, man, there's a lot of candy on this floor. Like, we hit the jackpot.
Oh, can I make some money at school?
Right. What did you do with
I
all
gotta
that
have my
stuff?
own supply for, I got a lifetime supply here.
So I seriously have to ask you, Ryan, like, what happened with all that stuff that was on the floor? Like, had it been there for a long
So
time?
long
or
ago, my
what?
dad
It's like-
threw it all away. It was my dad was like, "Don't touch that! Get that candy! It's old! It's expired!" And I'm like, "Hey, it's still good. It's in the wrapper. Come on! I mean." It made its way into the trash.
I would
it made its way into my pocket.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know, man. I would think that had he had a few more kids in there, man, I know some of that stuff would have made it to the streets, right?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so your dad, he needed this place because he was opening up a brokerage. He needed a location for his brokerage. Is that what it is?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
That's when he first started out, and he ran his business out of that place for several years until he moved to Riverside. We were in South Pasadena at that time.
Gotcha. Okay, so where were you born, Ryan? Just give me a little bit of, let's go into your background just a little bit, because we don't even know who you are, where you're from, and all that jazz. So where were you born? Who are your parents? What were their backgrounds? All that.
So I was born in Fontucky, California.
Okay.
At Kaiser Hospital.
Uh-huh.
And,
in a manger.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right.
And I grew up in South Pasadena, younger years, like elementary school, like halfway through elementary school, and then lived with my grandparents out here in Riverside, a couple of times during that period of time. And then my dad got a divorce and moved to Riverside, and, I've lived in Riverside most of my life. Especially since about, sixth grade on, we lived out here in Riverside. So my dad was divorced at that time twice. That was his second divorce. My mom my mom and I were estranged for most of my early childhood, and a lot of that had to do with kind of the family dynamic with my dad's new wife, or second wife. And so I didn't get to see my mom a whole lot. But after that, that was over, I got to go out and visit with my mom quite a bit after that. So, I don't really remember too much of my early childhood, with my mom. My mom is, it's kind of an interesting dynamic between my mom and my dad. You'd almost go, well, how the hell did they ever get married? Because my dad is, an entrepreneur, very, conservative viewpoints, politically very staunch Republican, kind of very conservative views. My mom is total polar opposite. Like, my mom is, very left-leaning, very social democratic kind of leanings, almost communistic kind of philosophies that she believes. So I've kind of had that dynamic of one versus the other, and I've seen kind of how both play, and I can see the good in both. And I'm pretty much a conservative for the most part. I mean, you could say, but I'm kind of a conservative liberal. You could say.
So you're John
Because of that
McCain's son?
dynamic.
Is that what you are? You're okay. Okay. So no.
It's like, I mean, I believe the government should be small, but we do need some safety nets out there. So I kind of lean both ways. I voted Democrat. I voted Republican. I just I vote just based on the information the candidate's given. I'm not a staunch Republican where I only vote red, or staunch Democrat that only votes blue. So I'm kind of right in the middle.
Okay. So you're basically the kind of person you like to think. Basically,
Yeah.
you like to.
I like to think for myself.
Make your decisions and based on what you think is the right thing to do, and or what might be right at that particular time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I'm a very rebellious kind of guy, and so I'm not so much a party person. I'm kind of a party person, but
right.
Not when it comes to politics.
Right. Yeah, I know you're a party person, so you can't lie about that. So now, so basically, when you're a young kid, you're going through this divorce, you end up with your dad. And so your dad's this big time broker guy. Like, first of all, please explain to our viewers what a broker does, because I'm not sure if a lot of people understand what a broker is, what a broker does, how do they make money, all that kind of stuff, how much money they make. What's up with that?
Well, a broker is basically so the hierarchy, so to speak, in the real estate licensing industry is that the broker is the one in charge, and a salesperson and a broker can go out and sell property, buy and sell property using the license without any kind of supervision needed. Whereas a salesperson, like, if you go out and you get your real estate license, you have to hang it underneath a broker, and you have to be supervised in your transactions, so to speak, by that broker. Okay. And the broker is the one that's responsible and actually owns that transaction. And they, work out a split with the real estate agent, whatever they think is fair. The two people, both think it's fair. And, the broker gets a cut of every real estate agent that sells a transaction. And that's how they make their money, in addition to whatever their own activities are as well. Okay. And so my dad had built up he started in real estate, but he had expanded that into, a real estate brokerage. He started with that. He got a property development company. He had a property management company, a maintenance company, an escrow company, and then a mortgage company, kind of all within a roof. And because he had a broker's license, he had the licensing to be able to start each one of those companies without any other special licensing.
Okay.
So, and he was very into the very creative real estate stuff. So when he got me into the business, kicking and screaming, by the way, these are kind of the things that he taught me. He taught me that a lot of this creative finance stuff, and, a lot of the stuff that, you find at the club every month, stuff that, I was learning about when I, first, that was my introduction, was learning about, from some of these, like the Jack Millers and the, these guys that were doing the seminars way back then on, no money down and, sell or carry back and buying and selling notes. And, those were kind of where my dad started my learning process when he got me into the business. When he'd go to a seminar, he'd take me along with him so I could learn some of this stuff.
Okay, so and I want to get into that in a minute about your dad taking you to these seminars, because I think it's I think it's pretty noteworthy because one of the things that I was curious about was how did you come to understand what you do now, you know, how you do what you do now in the creative realm, because there's not a lot of hard money lenders out there that know how to put together creative deals like you do. I'm assuming that because I haven't spoken to a hell of a lot of them, but I've spoken to enough of them to know that the way that you and I have these conversations about structuring a deal, it's not like conversations that I've had with others. And um, so my question to you is, Ryan, first of all, was your dad like a super rich dude because he had this brokerage? Did you grow up as like Richie Rich, with a butler and a chauffeur and your Rolls Royce going to school? Because
I
I imagine
wish.
what
God,
you're
I
telling
wish.
me would lead to that. Was that what your experience was like as a kid, or what?
Not at all. Always like a very good, I would say very, very good middle class kind of upbringing. My dad, my dad reinvested a lot of his money back into his business to grow it. So, we never, I never had to worry about a meal. And if I wanted, fancy clothes, I was able to, my dad could provide. And he always drove nice cars. We always lived in fairly nice houses.
So like mansions, you're saying you grew up and you
No,
lived in mansions? Is that what you
no,
mean, or
not
what?
mansions.
No? Did you grow up on a hill? Did you grow up on the hill, like
Actually,
by
we
the
did
water?
grow up on a hill. Yeah,
Okay.
and he had some
Okay.
really nice houses. So, you know,
Okay.
my dad, my understanding is my dad was a millionaire more than one time.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
so, but most of that was tied up into properties that he owned. At one point in time, he did own 300 properties
Oh, really?
that
Okay.
he personally, his company owned at one point in time.
Okay.
So, um, hold on. You there?
Yeah, I'm
I'm
here.
sorry about that.
Okay.
So he really put a lot of work in. Like I said, he was a workaholic. He did take time to do vacations and things like that. But for the most part, my dad was working 24/7 most of the time, and he put a lot of hard work into building what he built.
Okay.
Kind of thing. Was I spoiled? Maybe, but I don't think it was anything. I didn't have brand new cars. He made me buy my own car. And one of the best things he could have ever done for me, but turned out to be a disaster, was, when I was 18, it wasn't, here, you got to pay rent. It was, here, you got to pay a mortgage. I got a small $5,000 inheritance from a great grandmother that had passed away, and he held on to those funds and wouldn't give them to me, and instead went out and bought a house for me, maybe qualified to buy a house, and it was actually a duplex, and it was like, here you go, you're out of the house now, kind of like. That was his way of kicking me out of the house kind of nicely.
I'm gonna write that down for my son to see. Buy a duplex. Don't
Yep.
tell. On birthday,
Yes,
surprised
yes.
with. Okay, right. I kind of like that. So,
So his way of teaching me things was just forcing me into it, just
yeah.
pushing me right into it and get it into.
Okay. You're that kid that
And
didn't
jump
know how
right
to
in and
swim. Didn't know how to swim,
yeah,
got thrown in the lake, right?
yeah, figure it out, kid, kind of
Right.
thing, But I love my dad. He's not with us anymore, but
Okay. Right.
he had his ways about doing things, and for such a rebellious kid that I was, it didn't sink in quite the way intended at the time, but over time I've come to appreciate it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it kind of, you could say I kind of squandered it. I squandered kind of some of the knowledge, and didn't really apply it until much later in life.
Okay.
So I kind of had a rough. I mean, it was kind of a rough, childhood. I mean, my stepmother, his second wife was very abusive, and that was why I was someone that was very rebellious and had a lot of teenage angst, and hung out with the wrong kids, and did things I shouldn't have done, and had to pay a couple of consequences for that, and I went to juvenile hall when I was 14,
Mm-hmm.
14, and for some trouble I got into, and had to go through some of those things. I was in high school I was very rebellious, and I was doing a lot of drugs, and hanging out with the wrong people, and that was kind of why my dad got me into this business and kind of made me do these kinds of things, and he didn't know any other better way of doing it,
Right.
I've always been the kind of kid. I'm intelligent. I know right from wrong, and I do okay with understanding, learning lessons, and how to accomplish things, and so it was kind of that was his method of teaching me, was pushing me into this and making me do it, and then if I don't like it, I can go do something else and make my own way,
Right.
kind of thing. So
Right.
but
I can
all-
tell you.
I said it all comes in circles, and I'm glad I went through the experiences I did, and and now I get to take advantage a lot of that knowledge, and I think that early experience of learning the creativity at the beginning when my dad was getting me into this has helped me to be more creative now later in life, when, like you said, I'm you've talked to other loan officers that maybe not as creative. They only think one way or another, yes or no, not a maybe kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's kind of probably some of the things that help contribute me
Well,
being that way.
yeah, it actually it spills over, even like dealing with Thomas, because my relationship with
Sure.
Thomas, and just when we're having a regular conversation, there'll be things that he'll throw in there, and for example, like somebody who does gap financing, and then mentioning, well, don't forget, Ryan keeps a list of people who in the club who have cash that want to do gap financing, and so it's like that's another way that a person can go into call you up, say, hey Ryan, I found the house, but I don't have any money. Well, okay, well, this guy wants to go in on deals. He does gap financing. So those are the things that you bring to the table that other lenders may not be so quick to suggest. And
Sure.
so but going back to what you said a minute ago about the excuse me, about your background, is that it would be I would be remiss not to go back into that for a moment, and talk about this upbringing that you had, because you just described how your dad had 300 houses at one time. It was all tied to the business, and I only know because you and I have talked a lot prior to doing this interview, that at a certain point the business went under, and so all those properties tied to a business that goes under, well, then we kind of know what the result of that is going to be.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting to me is that you said that he had nice cars. I asked you about a Rolls Royce. You didn't mention anything about a Rolls Royce or a Lamborghini. And now a nice car, I'm assuming, is a BMW, as a Mercedes.
He liked Mercedes. He
Okay.
had a Mercedes SL.
Right.
He had an SL. He actually had a Maserati at one point in time that he got in some sort of a trade or something for a house, and
Okay.
it was one of those Maserati biturbos, back in the late '80s, kind of
Yeah.
fancy. It was pretty nice. It was fast.
Well,
but
so I have to ask you this. in maintenance all the time, you say?
Oh yeah, it broke down all the time. Not a very reliable car. No.
And pretty expensive to fix, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
If you could find a guy to fix one. So
Right. Yeah.
now, so when you say that he was always getting like a Mercedes SL, were these like brand new SLs, or were these like, the 2 years older, or something like that? Because I know, just like how you described the Maserati, I know like once you kind of get into that world of not paying retail for investments, that it's hard to go back to paying retail for stuff, right? So was that your dad? Was he one of those guys?
No, I mean, most of the cars he bought new.
Okay.
That the SL was his reward to himself. That was
Okay.
that was his splurge,
Right.
for himself. I mean, but they had Cadillacs, and he had a Firebird and a Trans Am, and what else did he have? Yeah, nothing like, I mean, the SL was probably the higher end car that he had, other than a couple of Cadillacs. But I mean, fairly, you know, average
Okay.
Joe, kind of medium, kind of, normal
Yeah,
cars.
and so what I'm hearing, and what I'm really getting into is like, you would think that, the average person that doesn't know this type of a life, and what, the average real estate investor is like. You're describing somebody who you would think has lives in a mansion, buys Lamborghinis and Maybachs all day long and all that
Right.
stuff. But the truth of the matter is that you guys were living middle class, but it was probably more upper middle class, like
It
3,500
was.
square foot houses and stuff like that, right? So we're
Right.
talking about,
Well, I mean, at different stages, of his career, he had, we had a real nice house up in the Woodcrest area that was up kind of on a hill, but not the house on the hill, but
Mhm.
we were kind of in the hills up there. It was a nice, probably 2,800 square foot house, three car garage, pool kind of thing, and then
Yeah,
and then we also lived over by Canyon Crest Country Club, right off of one of the holes there, and that was the last house he lived in California. It was a really nice house, and he was very active in the community.
hmm,
So he was very active in the Chamber of Commerce and the Board of Realtors and, organizations like that. So he hosted a lot of, events at his house.
okay,
So, of course, he had, some nicer houses, but it's not that $1 million mansion that you're thinking, what you're trying to describe. But, there were nice houses, I mean,
right, right.
I mean,
So then,
you got to have a decent income to afford one of those kinds of houses for sure.
yes, yes, you definitely have to have the income for it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he was not hurting for that. Now,
No.
because of that, one would think that, hey, man, Ryan had it good. His childhood was just nothing but sprinkled with roses and flowers, and every life is just nice and sweet. So, why would this dude just ruin it all over, doing drugs in high school and not paying attention, and then having all this access to your dad's business and all that knowledge and not taking advantage of it? And the truth of the matter is that life really wasn't that great for you at home, because it's one thing to get all the
You're
material
breaking up just a little
resources
bit
that
on
it,
me.
oh,
You're
okay,
breaking up on me.
okay. How about now? Still breaking up?
Now, yeah, you're still breaking up. Your screen is frozen.
Okay, hold on just a second. Okay, so Ryan, so when we're talking about the illustrious lifestyle you live, living up in the hills, and the big house and all that stuff, and because I mean, let's face it, the average person would think that you live this illustrious lifestyle because your dad had all these properties and this booming business. And I mean, the truth of the matter is that you were living good, but you weren't like super rich good. I mean,
No.
you were on the upper levels of middle class. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be accurate. Yeah.
Okay. So now, if everything was taken care of, life was pretty good. Your dad had plenty of money to buy you shoes and all that stuff, and you never missed a meal. Then why is it that you kind of fell into the wrong crowd like you did when you were a teenager?
Well, it has to do a lot with my dad's second wife. She was very abusive. Um, and as a kid, to have to go through some of the things that she put me through, I had a lot of anger and resentment going on during my teenage years when after it was over and I was able to start reflecting on some of it. It was like it came out in me and in ways that would you would expect out of a young boy, and the rebellious and and the arguments with my dad, and the resentment I had towards him, and things like that. I mean, I had knives put to my throat, and I was told that I was a piece of shit, and that nobody could love me, and I had meat tenderizers, those little hammer things, hit against my knees. I'd be thrown across the room. My stepmother took a razor to my arm one time and cut me. And she threw me across the room one time, and I landed on one of those metal Tonka trucks with my head, split the back of my neck open. And then she would tell my dad that, oh, he fell on a fence, or oh, he found a razor blade and cut himself. Or you should go into my room and tear it up. And I'd get home from school and my room was a mess and I didn't know why. And she'd tell me I had to sit in my room until my dad got home. And and of course, it was that I threw a big temper tantrum and destroyed my room. And here my dad is coming in to punish me for something I didn't do. Kind of, all of those kinds of resentments and, the anger and, some of that stuff that would really manifest more in my teenage years. And, I found relief in, the friends that kind of were in the same crowd with the same kind of same kind of background. And we were doing drugs, and that felt good, got rid of some of the, the problems that I had to think about, or masks. It masked a lot of that kind of stuff in wrong ways,
Right.
which and because I was doing those things, I would get into trouble and cause some damage and destruction along the way, and it was my fault. I totally took the blame for it, and I didn't have a problem taking the blame for it because hell, I always got blamed for everything anyways.
Right.
So kind of that was very my dad and I had a during my teenage years. I mean, he loved me very much, and I love him dearly, and all of those kinds of things. But going through that, I had to work out some of those things, and eventually, when I was more of an adult, I realized it was, no more his fault than it was mine. For, some of the things that, that went on during that time, based on the circumstances. And so, as I got into my 20s, we had a much better relationship. But by that time, his business he had gone through a couple of downturns, and in the late 80s, what was it, in was it the 80s or was it the 90s crash? I think it was the 90s that the market crashed, and he had gotten into some projects that, were real big projects, like out in Silver Lakes, up past Victorville.
Mhm.
He had a condo project with Belly Up, and his bank approached him and said, "Hey, we know you do stuff like this. You want to take this over?" And he took it over, and and unfortunately, he had some of the same problems the previous builder had, and kind of started to take him down. And he had a few other things going on where, because of the economics at the time, he found himself broke again, and had to file bankruptcy, and he shut down his businesses here in California and moved to South Carolina, and was a real estate broker out. Or actually, he went to South Carolina and with his current wife, or well, my current stepmother, and he started doing lending out there and doing loans and brokering loans out there to the day he died. So,
Okay.
but I had an opportunity to follow him and go out there, but I decided I wanted to be out here in California, and it was kind of one of those things where it was like I had to kind of make it on my own.
Right.
I'd never really had a lot of handouts. I did, as you're a kid, of course you get handouts and things like that. But, after my dad kind of kicked me out of the house, it was kind of, I had to make it on my own, and I realized that. And, and I didn't have that backstop of, I'm struggling, and, I can go run to daddy and go live with him. It wasn't kind of, my mindset was, if I'm struggling, it's my fault. I need to figure out a way to fix the situation. And I have the know-how and the knowledge. I just have to, put the effort in, and I'll fix whatever struggles I'm going through, with some hard work. That was kind of
Okay.
my attitude with it.
Right. Now,
So,
I think it's important to to just rewind a little bit, just to talk about what this was like for you as a kid, because again, I would think that most people would think that because of your dad having the type of the level of success that he was experiencing at the time, that would have made everything just all roses for you. But the reality is that you were going through hell during that time that your dad was experiencing all that success. And you had mentioned earlier in the interview that he was pretty much a workaholic, gone 24 hours a day.
yeah,
So there you are at home alone with this stranger who's not even your mom, and she's probably pretty resentful of you because she doesn't get him either. Just like you're not getting
right.
him, she's not
Mhm.
getting him, and she's stuck in a house with a kid that's not even hers.
Right.
And obviously, if she's got some problems going on that he hasn't paid attention to because he's busy at work, he's not paying
Right.
attention to the woman that he just
Yep.
dragged into the house to spend all this time with his young son. How old were you when that first started?
Just before I turned 6 years old. I was five. I was five when they first got together, and then they got divorced when I was 12. I want to say around 12, 11, 12 years old, something like that.
And the abuse
Uh,
started like from day one?
Pretty early on, yeah. That incident where I was, told you she cut me on the arm. I was probably 6 years old. Before I was 6 years old, I was probably 5 years old when that happened. Same thing with the Tonka truck, and there's, when I was older, I was still too young to fight back. So I
Mhm.
pretty much felt pretty helpless during that time of my life.
Right.
And here I am, a young kid, and I can't fight against a grown woman, it was like kind of one of those things where I had to. I guess I endured it, and I used to run away a lot. That was kind of my escape, and probably is one of the reasons why I really like going on long motorcycle rides, just running away from the world for a little while and clearing my head. And, that's my kind of zen, is going out on my motorcycle and just kind of riding around and just getting lost,
Right.
and,
Right.
not being lost, but lost kind of, and
Yeah.
kind of thing. But yeah, it was difficult to deal with. And, my dad tried to get me to go to counselors and into some of these, psychologists and things like that to kind of to help with it. But I was very stubborn, and I really wasn't open at that time of my life to talk about those things. It hurt, especially just as much as the physical abuse hurt, the mental and the telling me I was a piece of crap and telling me I wasn't capable of being loved, and you know being told that my dad didn't really love me, and all the psychological stuff was just as hard as the physical abuse. I almost would have preferred the physical to the mental kind of
Right.
abuse. And having to work that out, I went through those stages of my life trying to work those out on my own. And I eventually, when I was about 19, I sought some help for my drug abuse that was going on. It gotten kind of out of hand, and I was doing a lot of meth, and I lost my house, my duplex, and I just really screwed things off quite a bit during that time. And my dad was across the country, and my mom was in Hollywood, and my mom has been has never really been well off. She was always very in that poverty level, kind of income bracket. So it's not like I could go to my mom and ask her for financial help or any
Right.
any of those kinds of things. And so I've seen both sides, and I always tended to gravitate towards the friends that were not the richy rich kids. I was always hanging out with the kids that were, in my opinion, more real, more street kind of
Mhm.
kids,
Right.
so to speak. And that was the crowd that I always gravitated to, because I felt I fit in better there.
Well, I think
You
it
know,
kind
and,
of goes without saying you didn't have the privilege that those kids were enjoying, and so you didn't feel as though you
yeah.
belong with privileged kids, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And hanging out at somebody else's house was better than hanging out at my house. So, it was always like, hey, I always wanted a family like my friends, or whatever, because my family was, wasn't the best.
Right.
And as I grew up, I realized, with my dad working so much, he didn't see what was going on. And and here's another adult that he married. His wife is telling him these things. I mean, why would I can understand that your first reaction is well, why would I believe a kid over my wife? My kid over my wife, especially one that is young, and kids lie. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just part of growing up. We all kind of lie a little bit when we're a kid, or exaggerate, and I had to get kind of to that point where I realized some of those things that you know it wasn't so much, some of that resentment maybe was misplaced, because he didn't really realize. I mean, you can't correct something if you don't know about it, kind of
Right.
thing. And I didn't talk about it. I didn't speak up and say it was her. I did at the beginning, but after a while, it just fell on deaf ears. So I just never brought it up. So how could he know if I wasn't telling him? too.
Right.
So, those are kind of some of the things that I had to work out and realize along the way. And then, like I said, when I sought some help for, my drug addiction that I had with meth, and, it was like I started even realizing these things a little bit more, and I was much more open to talk about those things, and it kind of brought up a lot of that stuff, and a lot of realizations that, even though those things happen to me, I still control my destiny, and I control, my reaction to that, and how I react to, you know, that point in my life. I can either dwell on it and let it ruin me, and I could feel sorry for myself and, just exist, or I can forgive myself for not saying stuff, forgive my dad for not knowing, and and move on with my life, and do things that are healthy for myself, and do things that will help me succeed in life, and work hard. And I realized I had the tools. My dad, if anything that he gave me, the best thing he could have ever gave me was the education in real estate that he did.
Right.
I mean, for all the cars, all the, presents at Christmas time, and, all of those guys, out of everything my dad ever gave me, it was the education in real estate. That was the greatest gift I've ever gotten from him, other than his love,
Right.
and so,
Right.
um, you know,
Well, I,
and that's what I try and take advantage of to make myself and my family, a decent life that we can live. And I'm not obsessed with making money. I don't have, I've made really good money, and I've made really poor money, and I've struggled, and I've done really well, or I don't struggle. And, I'm not obsessed with, being a workaholic and working 24/7. I work so that I can enjoy my life. And my life, is my wife and my kids and my motorcycles.
mhm.
And that's what gives me the joy. And my work, luckily, allows me to have those things in my life that gives me that balance to, enjoy life, and not just enjoy just work,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, I'm happy that I've gone through the things that I've gone through, and I learned the lessons that I've had to learn.
Yeah.
I
Now,
wish I would have learned them a little earlier, and I'd applied them earlier, but it doesn't always work out. And you play the hands you're dealt with, and and you make mistakes, and you got to learn from them. So.
right, right. Now, so when it comes to like so we were talking about the abuse, and I do want to say that I commend you for being the person that you are now, and getting to this point in your life. Now, obviously, you've been this way for quite some time, long before I met you, but I think it goes without saying that somebody who's been through what you've been through, a lot of people have gone through that and not haven't had it turn out as well as it has turned out for you, because that's a lot to deal with, especially at that age. You and I have had conversations before about the fact that I'm a single dad, and
Right.
I could relate to what your dad had gone through, having to have a young child. And fortunately for me, I have three kids. And so Hassani, my oldest, he's
Hmm.
he was old enough to kind of
Yeah.
watch over his brothers for me, while can take care of trying to go out here and hit the streets and make some money. But
Right.
but at the same time, it's like, as a single dad, yeah, you're always wrapped up in trying to worry about making the money and making sure everything's taken care of, and you're not always so focused on the needs of your child, which is to just
Hmm.
have you present and have that love present for you.
Right.
And the fact that you were able to rationalize that even at an early age, going into 11 and 12 years old, says a lot about you as well. But I think the most important thing is that I want to say that you're not using any of that as an excuse for the things that happen now. Um, it's I think what you went through with the drug addiction, and then having not used the information that your dad gave you early on. I think that's something that would happen to anybody that's gone through something that traumatic, especially that early in life. And so I don't think that's um too far outside of what would be expected for somebody who's gone through that. But at the same time, the fact that you were able to rebound from that, and you don't use any of that as an excuse about, well, I didn't get started before because of this, and I didn't get started because of that, and I'm blaming my dad for this and that and the other. You don't blame your dad for any of that. You take responsibility for all the stuff that you had that was done. Me, certainly, I can understand the stuff that you've been through, and how that affected you, and how that affected your life, and how you developed as an investor. But damn it, you're here now, man. And and I like the fact that you're able to share that. You shared that with me, and that gave me a whole new level of understanding about who you are as a person. And I think that's another thing that's missing, that people don't realize, that real estate investors like you have real stories, and this is how we got to be where we are. And
Right.
so having said that, so when you finally did start using the information that your dad gave you, um, I'm sure that gave you a better appreciation for him and what he was going through, and the stuff that he was actually trying to do for you. Is that correct?
For sure. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I've spoiled myself along the way. Kind of, I'm that typical, like I'm the guy that most of the people in my position kind of make fun of, kind of like the oh, you're making really good money and you're just blowing it, kind of, and not really doing anything with it. I did that for a long time because being so young in this industry and being in a position where, like, most of my life I've been self-employed one way or another. And whether that's working for a large bank where I'm commissioned only, or a broker shop, or or doing loans on my own, or whatever. Like, I've always kind of relied on myself to earn what I need. And when it's kind of like, when I've always had the philosophy, if I wanted something, I can have it. I just got to go out and earn enough money to go get it, or work hard enough to achieve whatever it is that I'm wanting. If I want a new motorcycle or a car, or I want a house for my family, or whatever it is, it's just a matter of my mindset is that I can make that happen. I can do anything that I want as long as I'm willing to work hard enough to go get it. And I think that's helped me quite a bit as well. And, having that ability kind of is a double-edged sword, because sometimes, when you're self-employed and you're in this business, and you're doing this as, investing in, it is, it's easy to get sidetracked with those big checks. When you get a $30,000 check, and and you're like, oh great, all right, I just made half a year's income right now, or 10% of my annual income, or whatever. Like, that big check sometimes can get a little easy to just let slip through your hands, instead of going out and doing what you should be doing, which is saving for your retirement, and saving for later, so that you work hard when you're young, so you don't have to work hard when you're old. I knew all of these things, but when you're doing it, I've just looked at a lot of these things as just a job, and it affords me the opportunity to do things that I wanted to do, and like, I don't know. Like I said, motorcycles are my life, and my dream after hopping on a motorcycle, at 18 for the first time, I wanted to go out and race motorcycles, and and that was kind of my passion, and has always been kind of my passion, and and doing the things that I've done, has afforded me the opportunity to actually go out and race. I've actually, not only did I, get a chance to go out to the track and ride my motorcycle on a track, I actually got to enter into some races, and, and I actually won a race, and I had won a championship, and nothing like big time or anything, but it was like I've gotten to live some of my dreams because I was willing to work hard and make those those choices. But I mean, it's like now I'm looking at it like, instead of going out and just doing, because I always live my life like there's no tomorrow. I mean, hey, you enjoy it today because you can't take it with you. Well, when you get to be in your 40s, you start going, well, I need a little bit so that when I'm not able to do this on a regular basis, I've got something to lean back on, and so that's when it kind of snapped for me that I need to make that change, and start applying a lot of this stuff to my life. And being in a corporate environment, it just drove me really crazy. And when I had the opportunity to, to work with Todd, and Rehab Loan Group, it was at the right time. It's what I needed to do, and get creative again. And it's allowed me to be a lot happier than I was, doing what I like to do, and doing it for myself. I'm self-employed. I get to, if I want to take a long lunch break, I can. If I don't want to work, I don't have to. But I also know that if I don't work, I'm not going to earn. So it's kind of that fine, delicate balance of trying to make sure that I work really hard so that when I do take the time off, I'm able to enjoy that time off, kind of thing. Okay. So it kind of what am I trying to say? It's I mean, that's just kind of who I've been. And, working with Todd has really been, a lot of fun, and being able to get creative with things and being able to do things and step outside my boundaries, or my comfort zone. And, it's kind of nice, to challenge myself and, do some of these things that I've been talking about doing. It's like I can totally relate to all the new people that talk about wanting to flip their first house and talking about it for 5 years, but never doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, now that I'm doing it, it's like, okay, yes, I'm realizing like my dreams, I guess, again, they're mm-hmm. just different dreams,
Okay.
So
when you first started working with Todd, it was just under the guise that you were just going to start selling loans. You didn't have a plan to actually start flipping houses, or how did that?
No, I did.
How did you approach
absolutely, that was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, was because I knew that, I had met Todd and Steven a few times at the club, and I was becoming a very regular member, and I really wanted to get active with it. And at the time I was working for a large corporate bank, and, and I wasn't really happy there. I didn't really, they had so many rules and restrictions, and, it's like, don't post this on your Facebook, or, you're going to get fired, or, you don't do this or don't do that. And, and being in a bank, it's like, oh, you screw up. I mean, there's like, you can be charged with a federal crime, I mean, like, like,
wow.
I mean, so it's like, all that, that.
But at least you make great money, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, the benefits were great. I mean,
you're not in jail.
But, I really had been wanting to get into investing for a while, and I've been talking about it, and I started going to the club, and then I kept talking about it, and then talking about it, and then finally I I decided I'm going to do this, and it's funny because Todd had run an ad in a paper or somewhere advertising, a position at Rehab Loan Group, an opportunity. Hey, run your own thing, kind of thing. And I replied to it, and I sent him in my resume, and like he always says, he doesn't look at resumes. He just kind of puts them aside, didn't even bother looking. But I actually picked up the phone and I called him to make sure he got my resume and to let him know that I was interested. And that phone call, just put me up to the top of the list of who he was going to, hire for this position. And, he brought me in and, we talked, and, he liked the fact that I went that one step extra. Most people just send out a resume, but because I followed up and I expressed my interest in it, it was like, okay, let's give you a shot. Here you are, here's the keys to the kingdom, so to speak, and let's see what you can do with it. So, and I knew that it was one of the ways I could get myself in a position to be around enough investors that, kind of like I said before, you put yourself around a lot of people, and through osmosis, you just start immersed, things happen for you. Mm-hmm. And because you're around it and you're immersed into it, it's like it's going to happen. And I knew that would happen. So it was like, this is the direction. And yes, I'm walking away from, the platinum healthcare and, a good retirement account and a pension and, a salary along with commissions and, all of these things. And, those things weren't making me happy. And I knew that if I did this, it would at least put me on a path that I could achieve those things that I've been talking about for a long time. I kept telling my wife and, some of my friends, oh yeah, I want to flip some houses and, and this and that. I want to start investing in real estate and, owning some real estate. And yeah. You've been talking about it for a while. Well, I knew that by doing this, it almost kind of forced me into it. And I could almost, I don't know, it would force me to perform, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
And actually do the things that I've been saying I'm going to do. So, and that has happened for me. So, and I'm real happy that I've been accomplishing these. And I'm, now I'm at the point where it's like, okay, now that I know I can do this and I've been doing it, well, it's like, now it's time to get even more serious about it and, see where I can take this thing, and drive it, drive the car till the wheels fall off,
Right.
know?
So that must have been pretty scary. What year was that when you transitioned out of the 9 to 5 into this life?
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
2 or 3.
Todd,
3 years.
okay, because I always tell Todd he ruined
Yeah.
my life last year when he taught me the financial calculator, and and so he ruined your life 2 years ago, right? Right when I met you, basically. So I didn't know he was ruining your life back then.
Right.
I want to warn you.
Well, actually, my dad was the one that taught me the financial calculator and an HP 12C.
Okay.
And he showed me that little thing, like what we learned in Andy's class, where he goes, okay, if your Starbucks habit is $10 a day, and if you just save that, put that away, what's it look like in 30 years from now? My dad sat me
You've been
down.
getting that since a kid, huh?
Yeah, I've known that for a while. And
Right. Like, Dad, what's a Starbucks?
Holy shit, if he wasn't right.
Right.
Man. Yeah. What the hell? Like, if I had done that, look where I could have been.
Just imagine. So
yeah.
So with that transition out of the work world, because I remember what that was like for me. In fact, I had tried it once and it didn't work, and I went back to work again. And then the second time I did it, it was kind of like forced on me with a layoff with the city. And so when that happened, I was like, man, I told myself, no, never again will I be in this position, you know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
through, you know, this, like you said, man, it's like when you make that decision, things just start to happen. And I've never, you know, obviously life hasn't been that easy, but I've never had to go back to work for one reason or another. But that's allowed me the time to kind of dig into this business and learn some things on a more dynamic level. Nevertheless, what you're talking about is more along the lines of the fact that here you were earning this great living. You were making great money, I'm sure, because your dad gave you the tools early on, and then you're starting to use those tools, and it's like riding a bike. And then here you are, one of the all stars, I'm sure, over at your job. And I'm only saying that just based on what I know about you now, and things don't just happen. You don't just
Right.
come up with this stuff overnight, is what I'm saying, you
Right.
guys. So,
Yeah.
but basically, just understanding that this was probably a harder thing for you to do than it was for me having been laid off, because I didn't have to make that choice for me. Somebody else made that choice for
Yeah.
me. You made that choice for yourself. You were earning over six figures, and I'm sure your wife was not happy with you. Is that fair to say?
No, actually, no. My wife's extremely
She's
supportive
been
of
okay,
it.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you know, it's like she knew kind of I was at that point where you know I was pretty unhappy, you know, in the corporate environment, and she knew that, and so, you know, I mean, we she knew that the consequences could be, you know, income could dip quite a bit, and you know those kinds of things, and she's, you know, said, go for it, you know, do it. You need it. You need to do this. So you know, it was kind of my wife is a wonderful, wonderful woman, and you know, you know I love her dearly, and she's very supportive when it comes to things like this because she wants me to be happy. You know, just like I want her to be happy. So, you know, she sees that I definitely have the potential and the know-how, and why not? You know, go do this. You have the ability. You know, so you know, we've had to make a few sacrifices here and there, but you know, for the most part, you know, it's been working out well.
Okay.
You know, you know, she looks at me kind of funny once in a while on those months where you know something doesn't close, and like, come on now.
So,
You know, I mean,
yeah.
and you're right. I'm a very competitive person, and most of the, you know, I've worked in call centers for doing loans, and you know, I've led teams, and I've managed teams, and you know, and I've been, you know, top three, top one, you know, kind of, you know, these different places for you know performance and things like that, and you know, and it's fun for a while, you know, but that's kind of I'm a competitive person, and now it's me that I got to compete against. So it's my bad
Yeah.
habits that I have to compete against now.
Yeah.
You know, and how do I get better? And it's kind of like you know when I was going out to the track a lot, and you know trying to get that you know extra 1 second or that tenth of a second better to get my lap times better so that I can be more competitive against all the other people that I was going to race against. And you know, it's the same thing now. It's what can I do to make myself better? You know, and that attitude, that mindset is, you know, what I'm really tapping into lately, and seeing what I can do to make myself a better person. You know, and
Yeah.
what can I do to make myself better? What habits can I drop now
Uh-huh.
that you know can help me form better habits, kind of thing.
Okay.
And you know, how can I make myself more efficient? Where am I, you know, spinning my wheels where I shouldn't be spinning my wheels? You know, and what are the things that I'm good at that my strong suit, and you know, what can I do to, you know, do that more often? And I know that doing things like that will help me be successful over the long term, and help me accomplish the goals that I set for myself.
Right. And now, so, and I think one of the most important things that that I'm getting from you with this interview is just the fact that, and maybe this is attributed to just, that terrible experience you went through early on, but I'm hearing the fact that you realize, like, at a certain point in your life, that the things that you learned from your dad early on, the stuff that you kind of took for granted, you realize how important that was. Once you started applying it, you were finding success, but the real success that you've really found is just the happiness that you feel, not necessarily with being the most successful guy on the team in the corporate world and earning all the money. It's the freedom that you get from being an investor, knowing the things that you know, and then the money being a result of that. And I kind of
Yes.
hear that you're not really stressing the money so much as you are stressing the freedom. And
Mhm.
ultimately, this is what being an investor is all about. It's about helping people, and it's about being able to have the freedom to spend the time doing the things you love, like riding motorcycles or
Yep.
spending time with your wife or your kids and all that groovy
Yep.
stuff, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because when all is said and done, I mean, your family is number one, and work, is, money comes and goes, and if you're doing the activities that are necessary, the money comes. And if you're doing the things that you should be doing, though, it just follows. If you're just so focused on just making the money, um, you know, sometimes it's short-lived, or you're treating people the wrong way, and
And it
maybe you
never
make
shows up,
a, a,
right?
a really good amount of money to begin with, but people remember how you treat them, and the way that you work, and how you are, and those opportunities might not come your way if you're so money focused and not focused on, like, what can I do to help solve a problem, or what can I do to help somebody else out. What can I do to make somebody else's reality better.
Mhm.
Because if I do that, that's kind of my job. And then if I do my job well by doing those things, the money just naturally falls into place. So it's like, it's like, if you can sit on the computer and look at houses all day long, and find fantastic deals that are extremely profitable, but if you never write the offer, you're never going to get that.
Right.
If you don't write any offers, so you got to go through, and if you're willing to write 1,000 offers to get that one nice, real profitability, profitable deal, you'll get it. And if you work really hard at doing it, the money will come, kind of thing, if you start doing all the other things you're supposed to be doing.
Okay. So, I mean, now the average person would probably think, yeah, sure, it's easy for him to say that you don't have to worry about money and that money comes and goes because he grew up with money and, he knows real estate investing and all that sort of stuff. So, what would you say to that person who has that sort of a negative attitude about, how you look at money and how you say that money is abundant? And, the things that we know that the average person would not know and understand about what money is, how easy it is to acquire, and that it's really a process as opposed to a hurdle. So, what would you say to that person?
I would say that if you think you can't do it, you're correct. If you think you can do it, you're correct. It's most of this is really a mental game, and getting the right attitude with it. And instead of looking for the negatives and what can go wrong, you got to look at what can go right. And try your best to mitigate the things that are wrong, but everybody makes mistakes. Everybody loses money. I've been extremely broke at times. I mean, my checking account has been negative on more than one occasion. I've had to eat top ramen for, a few days or weeks, while I'm trying to figure out what, when the next deal is going to come along. And it's like, those are things that if you can just get yourself through that, and if you can change your mindset to I can, instead of focusing on the things that are stopping you, you can go very far with the real estate investing.
Right, right, absolutely, and I appreciate that because you really summed it up really well. If you think you can, you will, and if you think you can't, you won't. And it's
Right.
really just that simple. That's why they named the book Think and Grow Rich, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
you either think and grow rich or you think to stay poor. But it's all about your thoughts, and it's all about what you believe that you have the capability of doing. So with that said, Ryan, is there any parting word to leave people out of wisdom? Is there any missed?
I,
Hold on just a
I,
second. Looks like I got an unstable. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead now. Good. All right. We're good to go.
I would just say, just keep opening your, go out and meet friends and make friends with people, and enjoy doing that. Don't look at this as a daunting thing. That, like, you get an opportunity, and don't give up. Just keep trying. You're going to fail, and it's okay to fail. Just learn from the lessons of that failure, and you'll be successful. And just keep plugging away, even when you think you're failing. Keep plugging away, and fail until you succeed.
Okay.
Most of the people, like, if you go to some of these RIA meetings to meet some people, it's a good source of getting a support group, so to speak. People that you can bounce ideas off of, and people that can tell you if you're going to make a mistake, and how to learn from those mistakes and not repeat those things. And if you just go to these networking meetings and you just sit around and you just kind of twiddle your thumbs and you don't say hi to people, you're really missing out on the biggest benefit of everything. You may be going to a RIA meeting to hear a particular speaker, and it's the most important speaker in the world, but if you're not sitting there talking to the other people that are there as well, you're missing out on great opportunities to get to know other people, that will help encourage you, and can help guide you to whatever future success you may have. So open up your mouth, even though you're embarrassed. Maybe you don't know how to talk to somebody, but say hi. I'm new, and let them take over the conversation. That's the easy way. If you find yourself in a position where you're uncomfortable, tell somebody, hey, I'm a little uncomfortable here. Walk up to somebody and say hi. 9 times out of 10, they're just as uncomfortable as you are. And it breaks the ice, and it gets you in. And I'd say build a good support group and a good network of people that will help you succeed.
Absolutely. And you're 100% right about that because a person, I mean, now we're on Zoom, and it's not like, going over to the Mission Inn and walking up to somebody. It's like, okay, we're in a Zoom. Now we're going to do a little breakout session. Just tell somebody, hey, look, I'm new. I don't know anything. And there's plenty of members of the club like me or like Ryan we can talk. We have no shortage of words, do we, Ryan? So if you're new, man, we'll pull you up, right? Every now and then. I
But
know.
fire me up, and I can rattle it off.
Right. Just say the word loan. That's the magic word to
Right,
get
yeah.
Ryan going. Yeah. So that's yeah, right.
Did somebody say mortgage?
Right. So that's that's the one thing that I know that that is 100% true, Ryan. It's like people, when you walk outside of that environment and you go back to the regular world and you're talking to your family, you know, your mom and dad, your brother or sister, whoever it is, that's a big influence over your life. And because we grow up in a world, in a society that believes in traditional work and all that good stuff, which is nothing wrong with it, because that's the way of the world. But then when you start talking about this sort of stuff, a lot of times you get a negative reaction from people. Let's face it, it's out of the box
Mhm.
type of speak. And
Yeah.
so that's the importance of going to a meeting, meeting people like Ryan and Thomas and Todd and Stephen, because that will be your support group to help you normalize all of this stuff that we're talking about, because it has to become normal for you to not be a big deal.
Right.
And once it's not a big deal, and it's just like regular speech for you, it's like, hey, rolling off a log. And again, you got great mentors, teachers, people who will hold you by the hand and help you through a deal. You go out there, you find a house, you know somebody who's trying to sell their house and they got to get rid of it quick. You need some money for that house. Ryan, how can this person get in touch with you directly?
Well, they can either call me at 951-543-2846. That's my cell phone. And then my email address is ryan@rehabloangroup.com. Real easy.
Cool.
Or see me at one of the meetings and just come up and say hi. I don't bite, at least not hard.
All right, good. Because I'm like a hot dog, man. Sensitive, you know. So anyway, so when you are able to help somebody with a deal that they have, and say like they want to make an offer on the house, how can you help them out with that?
So, there's a couple of things. Once I've pre-qualified you, I can give you a proof of funds letter that'll help you with your offer, to
Okay.
help increase the strength of your offer when you're submitting an offer. And then, I can help you with, analyzing the deal to make sure that your numbers, I can double check your numbers. Like, you may be looking at some comps that, maybe they're a little optimistic, or maybe you're not seeing all of the comps around the area and the place is worth more than you think. Or, maybe you're thinking it needs $20,000 worth of work, and when I'm looking at the pictures on the inside, I can spot that you're going to spend more than $20,000 on a house. So definitely, feel free to reach out to me and ask me, to help you with analyzing a deal. I'll be more than happy to do it. As long as I've got time. I might not be able to get to it like that minute. I might not be able to get to it that day, but I will do whatever I can to help you out with getting it analyzed and seeing what we can do with it.
All right, cool. And then just so everybody knows, that pre-qualification process for the loan, not difficult at all. Not
No.
Look, if I can
It's
I can qualify, anybody can qualify. Okay. No.
and how.
Right. Now, tell us how what they have to do to be able to get to the part of qualifying, Ryan. How do they do that?
It's pretty easy. You just give me a call, describe the deal, let me know how much money you're working with, what kind of credit history that you have, what your experience level is. And just with those things, I can verbally pretty much go over what you can qualify for. And then we could talk about that. I can give you some ballpark answers, as far as what we qualify for. And if it's, something that you'd like to pursue, then, we can take the next step with an application and, getting, some of the documentation that I'd need and getting it going. And, and if it's a good enough deal and, you want a partner, give me a call. If numbers work out, absolutely, we will partner with you on on a deal. We'll joint venture it and get you through your first one. If you're kind of a little nervous about getting started on the first one, or you don't know how, or as long as you go out and do the footwork to find the deal, I'll do the footwork to help you get the money for it.
Cool. Okay. So there's really no excuse. A person that can, if you can find a deal, you can fund the deal. You can get it funded one way or another.
One
And
way or another.
I know a lot of times people will come in and they'll say, hey, well, the seller said the house is worth this much, and this is what my offer was. Well, Ryan will be the one to tell you what the house is really worth, because everybody thinks that their house is worth way more than it is, right? So but that's another story for another day.
Yep,
So,
absolutely.
so Ryan, thank you very much for being on the show today. I really appreciate everything that you shared, especially the stuff about what you went through as a kid, because I think a lot of people can benefit from that. Because a lot of people have stuff that they have to overcome from childhood, and it's not an excuse. It's a fact. If you went through something and you feel like that's holding you down, and a lot of times people will tell you, man, you got to get past that, man up, and do all that stuff. Well, look, a lot of things are not that easy to get past, especially when you go through it at an early age. But again, as an adult, you got to do whatever you can to pick yourself up and keep it going, because there's a lot of people that are relying on you, especially if you have kids. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to do for this audience, is just make sure that you have that information. If you find somebody, everybody's got somebody that can be in their corner. If you don't have anybody in your corner, heck, call me up. I'll be in your corner, because people like me and Ryan, we just want to see people succeed in life. That's what this is all about. And so with that said, Ryan, thank you very much. I keep forgetting, I always tell them to please subscribe to the channel and give me a thumbs up if you can. I don't do this for the accolades. I do this really for you guys to have this information. That's the most important thing. So thank you very much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you inviting me on. Thanks.
All right, no problem, man. And I hope I can get you back on here at some point in the future, and maybe we can have you break down some definitions at some point. What do you say?
Sure. Absolutely. Just let me know.
All right. Cool, man.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.